Hello there, YouTube. I am Necrostevo, and join me once again for battle number 5 in the PPL NX, stage number 2. Our opponent this week is a new one. We have the privilege to go up against Alphas and the Newport Noctowls. Their information will be in the description. Naturally. Let's take a look at their team. They've drafted Great Tusk, Deoxys Speed, Manaphy, Ogre Pawn Hearthflame, Hisuian Gudra, Comfey, Mandibuzz, Raikou, Muck, Porygon Z, Volbeat, and Azurill. The Pokemon that can Terra are their Comfey, Mandibuzz, Muck, Porygon Z, and the Volbeat. This is one of those teams with a ton of Terra options. But you can see that my opponent only brought the Mandibuzz to this battle for their Terra. I ended up going with Terra Dragon on my Palisand. I thought that it was a great swap in to the likes of Ogre Pawn Hearthflame. It could take hits from the Raikou, and in a pinch, it could serve to take hits from Deoxys that did not have something like Ice Beam. Now, the dedicated lead for this setup is a Yache Berry Taunt Thundurus Incarnate. Thinking that my opponent would lead with their own Deoxys Speed and try to either set up hazards or put up screens, Taunt would shut that down immediately. The other thing that's nice about this is that my opponent should be afraid of the Thunder Wave. Deoxys Speed, being one of the fastest Pokemon in the game, does not want to get Thunder Waved. So if he swaps out to something, Taunt is still useful to stop something swapping in from setting up or taking advantage. And if he stays in, then I can make sure that I'm the one who is in the driver's seat. My opponent does swap immediately out to their Raikou, which is fine by me. My Thundurus is able to put some damage down on Raikou here. Wanting to see what Raikou would go for, I decided to stay in because I thought that it was a little obvious to swap into Galarian Slowking, and we do see Shadow Ball, and it does a ton of damage, which makes me think that this Raikou is actually Specs Raikou. As I go to swap into my Meowscarada, I notice that I don't have spikes on it. Meowscarada was supposed to have spikes in this battle, because between spikes and stealth rocks, I figured that I could pressure my opponent a lot. But here we have a Meowscarada with only 3 attacks. Now you will see in this match that I do have several opportunities to set layer of spikes, and so this will end up mattering in the long term. Here, since I don't have spikes, I decided just to go straight for Triple Axle, and that turns out to be the play because expecting a knockoff, my opponent goes out into their Mandibuzz. Now, it's very likely that Mandibuzz had Rocky Helmet, but I decided to put protective pads onto my Meowscarada, so I did not have to worry about the damage. Here, one more Triple Axle will be enough to take out the Mandibuzz, even if it goes for the Terra Poison. I did get a critical hit on one of those Triple Axles, but without the critical hit, it would have still been a 2-hit KO. So all I have to do is just make sure that this next Triple Axle connects, and we will be one Pokemon closer to victory. Unfortunately, that's not how things go. So we missed the Triple Axle. The Mandibuzz is looking very healthy. Here I click it again just to try to do something, but with the sheer amount of HP Mandibuzz has, and now it's no longer weak, it basically just gets all the way back up to full HP. So we go out into our Galarian Slowking here. Unfortunately, as my opponent goes for knockoff, I thought maybe a U-turn there, or even the flying type move. But since he's now poison instead of dark, I can at least threaten the psychic noise. Now I considered here going for Earthquake, expecting Hisuian Gudra to want to swap in here. And now my opponent goes for the U-turn. But I went for the very obvious psychic move here, so Hisuian Gudra is able to come in and eat this very comfortably. If I had gone for Earthquake there, we would have been able to put some pretty decent chunk chunks of damage onto the Goodra. Here Goodra goes for Heavy Slam. I was not sure what to expect from the Goodra. Goodra gets a lot of different coverage moves. So I stayed in and I went for Earthquake. We do barely live the Heavy Slam. I do not want my Pokemon to go down at this point in the battle. And so we're going to swap out here. Now I really have two options. I could go out into my Palossand and throw off Scorching Sands, or predicting another Heavy Slam, I could go out to Skeledirge. I do choose to go out to Skeledirge, which works out because if I had gone out in the Palossand, I would have eaten an Ice Beam to the face. Not what I wanted to see at all. Now here, we are going to take the opportunity to go for the Torch Song. Torch Song can accomplish a few different things. Number one, if he stays in, it'll make my next hit a possible 2-hit KO. From here, I can't 3-hit KO it unless I get some boost. So now that I have the boost, I'm possibly going to be able to get that 2-hit KO from here. But my opponent goes for Dragon Tail, which is unfortunate because I would have loved to snowball some boost right there. On the other side though, he does send us out into Ogerpon, but unfortunately I don't have Low Kick on Ogerpon. I put Low Kick onto Meowscarada. With Ogerpon, Ogerpon has all offensive moves in Swords Dance because I figured I could snag a Trailblaze and a Swords Dance at some point and hopefully sweep. We do go back out into my Galarian Slowking here, expecting him to maybe go for another Dragon Tail, and then that would force me out and I would get more HP back. But he just raw swaps out into the Mandibuzz, and we can really see here, all this swapping, if I had the darn spikes up, we would be in a great position. Now his Mandibuzz very well could have had Defog, but also the Mandibuzz shouldn't be alive because I missed that triple axle earlier. So truly neither here nor there. Once again, we are just going to go straight for Psychic Noise and not try to predict too much. Deoxys Speed comes in, and so we are able to break a possible Sash on it. I was anticipating here that he might want to set up an entry hazard or go for a screen. I almost went into Palossand thinking, okay, if he's going to do that, I might as well get up my rocks. But then I remembered, okay, he might actually have Knockoff, which wouldn't be great. You can see on my Skeledirge that I have the Pasho Berry instead of the Colbur Berry. Pasho Berry was in case he decided to bring Manaphy, which set up, I could take a hit from it and then roar it out if needed, because something like a Manaphy against my team could be very annoying. But I also didn't know if he'd bring Manaphy with my dual grass type offensive core there. Unfortunately for me, he does go straight for his Stealth Rocks, and I do a lot of damage with Sludge Bomb, and we get a little bit of justice here because I am able to poison him, which means he is now on a timer. There are a number of different things that Deoxys Speed can do. Of course, I've already mentioned the utility capabilities, but also Deoxys Speed can just throw off insanely powerful moves like Super Power and Psycho Boost. Just things that are going to do a lot of damage. Now, unfortunately, I do need to try to reposition myself here. Again, I was thinking he might try to set things up, and so I went out into my Thundurus here to either just taunt him and prevent him from setting up more, or just go for the offensive move. He takes me out with the Knockoff, and that enables me a free swap into my Palossand. This is primarily in order for me to go for my Terra, and it looked to me like he was in range to die from his poison. So we're going to Terra Dragon. And as he goes for Knockoff, which does get rid of my leftovers, unfortunately, I just set up Stealth Rocks thinking that he's going to die to the poison. But, of course, there must have just been like a glass of the most refreshing lemonade in the distance, and Deoxys is able to hold on just a little longer, just to grab that last little drink and do a ton of damage with Psycho Boost. Fortunately, I did anticipate Palossand taking a hit from Deoxys at some point, so it has a little bit more special bulk in this battle, and I went for Shore Up knowing that if he swapped out, he would die to the Stealth Rocks, and if he stayed in and attacked, I could just Shore Up and get some of that HP back. But I'm really going to be missing my leftovers for the remainder of this battle. Now he goes out to Slime Shady. I very easily, honestly, could just go for Scorching Sands, but depending on his investment with those ice beams, they might still be doing too much damage. I also want to avoid the possibility of Goodra setting up and going for something like Iron Defense Body Press or something like that. And so I do switch out as he goes for Draco Meteor. I thought he would be going for Ice Beam. Draco Meteor does a lot more damage to my Galarian Slowking, and I take a long time to decide what to do here. Last time I actually swapped out, and so this time I'm going to stay in here, and we're just going to go for the attack. And so we do manage to actually pull that off because he ends up going out to his Raikou as I go for Earthquake. And so that was very satisfying. Not necessarily a prediction on the Raikou specifically. I just wanted to stay in and attack because I had swapped out last time and I didn't want to play too predictably. So now we're going to go out into my Sand Hypnotizer here. And again, we can see how little HP the Raikou lives on. If I had this spike up, Raikou would have been gone. The Deoxys would have been gone. And I think now I've had 3 or 4 opportunities where if I had spikes on Meowscarada, I would have just brought it in, set a spike, and then swap out. So not having that move on there is very annoying. And I don't know how I missed it either, because in order to breed new moves onto the Pokemon, you delete a move and then use the Mirror Herb. So clearly I made the slot, clearly I had it holding the Mirror Herb, and I don't know what happened from there. Now here I bring out my Ogerpon and thinking that he's going to swap immediately out to the Goodra to be immune to the grass type move. I went for Swords Dance, but he stays in. I honestly was very, very surprised to see that, because if I had gone for Trailblaze at that point, I could have taken out several of his Pokemon with the speed boost, and Goodra would not be able to KO me from the range of HP that I'm at if I had just knocked out the Raikou with the Trailblaze. I would have been at near max HP just after the Stealth Rock tick, and Goodra wouldn't have been able to KO me, and I could have gone for a Swords Dance into the Ivy Cudgel. And the range of HP that Goodra was at, critical hit was a guaranteed KO, and +2 was a possible KO as well. So I was very surprised by that. It ends up working out amazingly for my opponent, because then he gets to pivot out into the Goodra and absorb the Trailblaze. And now, unfortunately, I don't have anything faster than the Booster Energy, Booster Speed, Great Tusk. So from here, unfortunately, this is going to be a little bit of a wash. I definitely could have won that in-game, I think, if I had just gone straight for the Trailblaze. But I went for Swords Dance thinking, oh, he's going to go straight out to the Goodra, and I want to be able to hit that when it comes in. But all that being said, thank you very much, Alphals, for the battle. And everyone, I apologize that we went 0-5. I think I'm going to have to go and play a lot of Diablo 4 to recover from all these losses this week. Fortunately, we aren't out of it yet. We still have 1 battle left in the Bronze League tier. So be on the lookout for that. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope you have a beautiful, wonderful, resplendent, dark, amazing, quiet, peaceful, slightly nightmarish night. Good night, everyone.